Hello trainers, Professor Palm here, and it's December! After all, it's the most wonderful time of the year. There's so many holidays coming up, so first and foremost, I just want to say to everybody, happy holidays trainers! I hope that whatever holiday you're celebrating is a good one. After all, December is the month for giving. As David Sedaris one time said, Christmas means giving. Well, I would say that December is definitely a time of giving. After all, a lot of people love to give others presents for this time of the year. But I think a lot of people miss that Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all of the holidays are about being with your family, being with loved ones, being with the people you care about. That's something that I think everybody sometimes overlooks. December isn't really just a month about giving. It's actually a month about spending time with everybody. So it's also a month of happiness, and it wants everybody to enjoy it. As a kid, did you really like getting presents? And do you still like getting it now as you've grown up? Or if you are a kid, what's your favorite kind of present to get? I know that when I was a kid, my favorite things to get were none other than toys. I remember waking up and being happy to open my presents to find toys, all sorts of toys. Well, I do know that nowadays a lot of us use electronics. I remember how many fun things I had with my toys when I was a kid. I would go on adventures with them. I'd set them up with my friends. We would do so many things together. So why don't we go back to a time before electronics were all the thing and talk about toys? You know, when I said that we're going to talk about going back in the day when toys were a fun thing, I'm not just talking about when I was a kid. I'm talking about going back, way back to 20,000 years ago, back in the ancient times when toys were a brand new concept to children. I'm of course talking about the two toys that children love the most, which were rocks and of course clay figurines. But did you know that some of the clay figurines that were made for children came to life? Yep. Because of the life that they were given, not only have those toys been around for so many years, they still exist to this day. And of course, those toys I'm talking about are none other than the Claydolls themselves, Baltoy, and of course, its evolution, Claydol. Long before the very first Pokeball was ever made, Baltoy and Claydol existed. But back then, they were first dolls. Well, mainly toys or clay figurines before they became the Pokémon we know today. Isn't it crazy to think that they were just toys and now they became Pokémon? Well, after all, we have heard the story of Shuppet and Bayonet, so it's not entirely that far-fetched. But it is kind of interesting to think that before they were Pokemon, they were toys. And since they were some of the very first toys ever made, it's a high chance that they were some of the most popular toys. Speaking of which, are you getting the most popular toy this year, or are you just going to stick with electronics? It's crazy to think that some of the oldest Pokemon alive weren't even Pokemon when they started. Instead, they started off as toys. Do you really like to play with toys? Well, I gotta say, let's talk all about these Pokemon and how they came to be. But before we do that, Technova, take a bow. I'd like to give you a very special thanks for today's shirt. This one is called the Water Kip Within. Since we're talking about ground-type Pokemon, specifically ground-type from the Hoenn region, I couldn't think of a better shirt to wear than this one. Also, did any of you start off with Mudkip, the Mudfish Pokemon, and get a Swampert in your journey? If you did, this is a perfect shirt for you to wear. Also, is Swampert your favorite water type, or is there another one? Well, please check out Technova. She makes incredible designs just like this of all starter Pokemon. And hey, with the new games coming out, I'm pretty sure she's definitely going to make even more. So please give a good artist some good business. Why buy silly stock image t-shirts? I may not be sponsored by you, Technova, but of course, I want to give you good business and say thank you so much for this incredible shirt. Do you have kids? Are you a kid? Or do you just really love toys? Well, if you're looking for the hottest toy this year, I would say maybe skip it. Maybe go with either a Baltoy or a Claydol. Why? Well, the main reason is, what other toy can you play with that's also going to be your best friend and will stay with you for all time? That's what these Pokemon do. They started off as toys, but now that they're Pokemon, they still keep their function as toys and are always there by your side. So, I think it's time that we talk all about them and how these toys came to life. And let's do it right. Let's start off with the little Claydol itself, Baltoy. Baltoy the Claydol Pokemon is based off of Shikoko Dao, which are spacemen clay figurines from the Jomon period in Japanese history. They can also be seen as clay idols, but most of all, these Pokemon are specifically based off of spinners, the ones you give to kids to play with, but the most that they really represent is none other than the Dreidel. Some people claim that Baltoy or Claydols come to life, awakened by the psychic powers because of the clay they had, which is pretty interesting to think that your own toy came to life and can now become your best friend. Well, I guess you could debate that Bayonet also did this, but at least Baltoy does it in a very less vengeful way. Baltoy were first discovered in ancient ruins, and there have even been some cave paintings depicting primitive humans and Pokemon that look very similar to Baltoy in cave paintings. This not only proves that Baltoy have been around since the Stone Age, but they've also coexisted and lived happily with humans since the dawn of time. Despite Baltoy only having a single foot, this Pokemon has perfect balance, so even when pushed or pulled, Baltoy will never fall down. Something that's kind of funny about this Pokemon is, even though it has psychic powers and it has the ability to levitate, it prefers to stay on the ground. To get from place to place, Baltoy will either spin or it'll hop on one foot. While it's not commonly seen, some Baltoy master the art of spinning, that they have the ability to now spin on their head. And just like with their one foot, even when pushed, pulled, or even when they stop, Baltoy have perfect balance when on their head. Some of us like to do this with our Dreidels and spinners as well, so you're not alone for mastering the art of spinning, you're just like Baltoy at times. Since Baltoy have been around since the Stone Age, these Pokemon are very friendly, but what makes them very happy is when they spot another Baltoy. After all, what other Pokemon can you think of that's been around since the Stone Age other than these Pokemon, prehistoric Pokemon, and Regirock? Well, when two Baltoy meet, they both cry out in unison. While this may be annoying to us, this is just a nice way of two Baltoy saying, "Hello, friend! Long time no see." They also like to do a little dance where they both act like propellers going in the same or different directions. As we said before, Baltoy really loved to dance, but unfortunately, it doesn't have a lot of dance moves, and all it really just does is either spin on one leg or on its head. Huh, you know something? Is it possible that the reason we have ballet is because a lot of people just mimicked Baltoy's dance moves? Something interesting to note about Baltoy is where these Pokemon make their homes. We may have been able to find them a lot in the desert, but that's just only one place. Baltoy like to make their homes in ruins as well as old graveyards. I guess you could say that Baltoy not only really respect their past, but their elders as well. Baltoy made its anime debut in the Pokemon Advanced Challenge episode, Me, Myself, and Time, under the ownership of Callista and her future self, who needed to be brought back to the future. In the games, Baltoy has the lowest base stat attack of all ground-type Pokemon. Only in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver is Baltoy ever seen as a counterpart to the Pokemon Gulpin. The main reason why is because Baltoy can only be found in Heart Gold in specific places, where in Soul Silver, only Gulpin can be found in those places. Did you know that along with Claydol, Baltoy was the very first Pokemon of a ground type to be genderless that was not legendary? Strangely enough, in the Pokepark game on Wii, Pikachu's Adventure, most of the Baltoy there refer to themselves in male pronouns. I have a little Baltoy. I made it out of clay. I'm so sorry, trainers. I just had to do it. After all, we are looking at a little Claydol, and I gotta say, it really is a cool toy. I can really see why a lot of ancient children fell in love with this Pokemon and why it's been around for so many years. A lot of people really like it, and it has incredible powers. But if you want to see how powerful it can get, as well as how fast it can spin, well, let's evolve our little Baltoy into Claydol. And trust me, this is a Claydol that you'll always want by your side at all times. Claydol the Claydol Pokemon is based off of Shikoko Dou, the spacemen clay figurines from the Jomon period in ancient Japan, but it's also based on spinners, but most of all, because of its new design, Dreidels. It's been said that Claydol did not start off as Pokemon. Just like with its previous evolution of Baltoy and the Pokemon Bayonet, Claydol were not Pokemon in the beginning. Instead, they were clay dolls, or clay figurines, made by an ancient civilization dating back to 20,000 years ago. The purpose for them was actually rather cute. It was just made as toys for the children. You might be asking yourself, how did these Pokemon come to be? How did they come to life if they were just toys? Well, dear trainers, nobody actually really does know the answer, but some do claim that the clay that was used to make these figurines as well as dolls had special psychic powers, but they didn't really have anything because they didn't have a form. But once they made it into the form of Claydol, they came to life and became the Pokemon we all know today. You do have to ask yourself, was that really incredible, or was it much scarier back in time? I guess it was a mix of both. Back then it was kind of terrifying that your own figure came to life, but at the same time, it's kind of incredible that your own toy came to life and now wants to be your best friend. Huh, I guess you could say that's an incredible toy story? I see you! Ha! But that's something that Claydol would say if it would talk. After all, it has 8 eyes and it can see in all directions, so good luck sneaking up as well as sneaking away from a Claydol. However, the blind spot, as you can tell, is on its top of its head. But also something that you should know with Claydol, since it has the ability to see in all directions, it also doesn't really have a set front or back, as whatever direction it's going, either side of its body can serve as its front and back. Something rather interesting about Claydol is that a lot of people overlook the symbols within its chest and back. What do these mean? We actually have no idea, but they look very similar to Unknown Q. Is it possible that Claydol and Unknown had some past together? We'll never know, but I guess until then, these are up to interpretation of what they represent. Not that, trainers! Stop thinking of those! The most powerful weapon to a Claydol for battle are both of its arms. Both of these arms are separate from its body, and they can use incredible powers, as well as emit powerful psychic blasts. Also, since it's a Psychic-type Pokemon, it can always recall them, even if it gets separated. So unlike the Pokemon Probopass that often can lose its mini-noses, these powerful blaster arms can never be lost from the body. And never underestimate them. They may be small, but they pack a mean punch. Did you know that Claydol are aquaphobic? Being it's a ground-type Pokemon, it's justified to think that it doesn't like water because it's weak to water-type attacks. But it takes the weakness to a whole new level. You see, if Claydol was to get wet, or even have the rain fall on it, it would melt. Yep, this Pokemon is scared not just of water, oceans, and ponds, but even the rain. In order to avoid itself melting, it wraps itself with its psychic powers, just to protect its own body. Jeez, imagine being this Pokemon. Even your sweat could kill you. That is terrifying. Claydol have never forgotten that they were once toys. In fact, Claydol really love to be around children, making them happy as well as entertaining them. They like to show off with their psychic powers, and some of them even go on the ground and spin like tops, just like they did when they were Baltoy. It's good to see that they haven't forgotten where they came from, and they still really love children. Claydol made its anime debut in the Pokemon Advanced Battle episode, Claydol Big and Tall, where a giant one was released from a giant stone Pokeball. It had been put in there to be stopped as a rampaging monster from a village. In the core series games, specifically the Sinnoh games, Claydol is the signature Pokemon of Pokemon trainer Buck, who you team up with to get through Stark Mountain. In Pokemon Platinum, his Claydol now serves as his boss Pokemon when you rematch him. Before the Paldea region, introducing us to the grass and ground Pokemon Toedscruel, Claydol had the highest special defense of all ground-type Pokemon. Claydol, along with its previous evolution in Baltoy, were the very first non-legendary ground-type Pokemon to be genderless. Despite this, in the game Pokepark for Wii, Pikachu's Adventure, Claydol and Baltoy in those games use masculine pronouns. When in battle, Baltoy and Claydol have a lot of weaknesses, so if you want to use these Pokemon competitively, do not use them against Dark, Grass, Water, Bug, Ghost, and Ice. Wow, they have a lot of weaknesses. Hopefully they make up for it in strengths. Even though they have a bunch of weaknesses, at least Claydol and Baltoy have a bunch of strengths, and when in battle, use these Pokemon against Fire, Rock, Poison, Steel, and Fighting. While Baltoy and Claydol have 6 weaknesses and only 5 strengths, I think they actually make up for it with immunities. Let's check those out. Because of both Baltoy and Claydol's ability of Levitate, they are immune to ground-type moves. So yeah, ground-type moves will do 0 damage to them, but being that they're also Psychic and ground-type, they have yet another immunity. And that other immunity that both Baltoy and Claydol have is, of course, electric. After all, these Pokemon are ground type, so good luck hurting them electric type attacks. These guys are completely immune. And hey, it's good that they have two immunities. After all, they have a lot of weaknesses. Do you remember the movie Toy Story? Did you ever think that maybe your own toys come to life when you're not looking? Well, what would your reaction be if all of your toys that you played with as well as your plushies came to life and now wanted to play with you as well as be your best friend? In all the 20,000 years that both Baltoy and Claydol have been alive, they have never forgotten once that they're toys, and they actually still do what they were made to do 20,000 years ago. They still like to entertain as well as make children happy. After all, sometimes when you catch this Pokemon, it can bring you victory, and doesn't victory bring a smile to your face? Well, that's what any good toy can do, make any child happy as well as bring them all the joy in the world. Whoever sculpted Baltoy and Claydol was a genius. These are some of the most incredible clay designs I've ever seen. Yeah, there are many other things that we could make with clay, but for toys back in time, I wonder what they represented. I wonder if humans were pretty hard to make, so the sculptor that used them just decided to go with an artistic side of you. Either way, I can't blame the artist. This was their vision, and the Pokemon that they created out of this clay really still holds up to this day. Other than looking like toys as well as sculptures, Baltoy and Claydol have always looked like tokens to me from a board game. As a kid, I really loved board games, and I hope that you did too, trainers. You know, since Baltoy and Claydol have been alive for 20,000 years, I wonder what games they played back in all those times. I bet they could teach us incredible games that we've forgotten all about as times have evolved. So, did you ever hear the Dreidel song when you were in preschool, or have any of your friends ever sang it? Well, I think it's right to end on this note, but we're going to put on a very different note for these Pokemon. After all, we made them out of clay. Oh, Baltoy and Claydol, I made you out of clay. When you're dry and ready, we'll battle, spin, and play. Oh! Welcome back, trainers. I'm so sorry about that. As you can see, I was just kind of listening to what could be within this present. I have no idea what it is, but whatever it is, I'm excited to find out. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wait till Christmas, but trust me, it's well worth the wait. Did you learn anything new about Baltoy and Claydol? Anything surprising? Also, do you think that it would be fun having your toys come to life? Or would that be more of a nightmare for you? And would you be completely terrified of it and never want to play with toys again? Also, if they were to get regional variants, what typings do you think would look great on them? Also, do you think that you could make an even better evolution for them out of clay? If not, that's fine. But if you do, I really would like to know. Well, if you liked what you saw, please leave a like. If you have any questions, you want to answer any of the questions I said, or you want me to make a video about a different Pokemon line or anything else, please comment. And as always, if you like what you saw and you want to see more, smash that subscribe button. We're not totally at Christmas just yet, but we will be soon. And I promise you, there's a Christmas video coming up very soon for all of you trainers. Thanks for watching. Palm out!